Rank 10, M1902/30 76mm, Soviet Union. The Soviet Union in the 1930s was a nation in a desperate hurry. Industrialization was being forced through at a pace that killed people and broke systems, and the Red Army's artillery program was no different, a frantic effort to modernize while keeping one foot planted firmly in the past. The M1902/30 is the physical embodiment of that tension. The gun started life as the M1902, a Russian imperial design that served adequately in the First World War and the Russian Civil War. By the late 1920s, it was clearly obsolete. But the Soviet Union didn't have the manufacturing capacity, the design bureaus, or the trained engineers to simply replace it overnight. So they did the next best thing. They upgraded it. The M1902/30 modification stretched the barrel, improved the breech mechanism, and boosted the muzzle velocity significantly. The result could fire a 6.5 kilogram shell out to approximately 13,000 meters, a genuine improvement and enough to match many contemporary European designs. Crews improvised, gun positions were camouflaged. The gun was paired with concealment and patience in a way that turned a limitation into a tactic. It's not a great gun, it's not even a good gun by the standards of 1942, but it's a gun that Soviet crews wrung every ounce of performance.
Rank 9, 21cm Morser 18, Germany. Now we change register entirely. Everything so far has been about divisional artillery. The 21cm Morser 18 is something different. It's a siege weapon wearing a field gun's paperwork. Weighing nearly 17,000 kilograms in firing position, the Morser 18 required a dedicated prime mover to transport. Actually, 2 prime movers, because the gun broke down into separate loads for road movement. Setting it up took the better part of a day. Breaking it down again, the same. This was not a gun you moved during a battle. This was a gun you moved before a battle, carefully, with significant logistical support, in the hope that the battle would be where you put it. What it offered in exchange for all that effort was genuinely devastating. The 21cm shell weighed 113 kilograms. At maximum charge, the gun could hurl that shell to 16,700 meters with extraordinary accuracy. Against fixed fortifications, bunkers, artillery emplacements, hardened command posts, the Morser 18 was the tool of choice. It ranks low not because it was a failure. It wasn't. It ranks low because it could only ever be one thing, in one kind of situation, when the war demanded weapons that could be many things in many situations. Specialization is a luxury that only dominant armies can afford indefinitely. Germany, after Stalingrad, was no longer dominant.
Rank 8, M30 122mm howitzer, Soviet Union. The M30 is the gun that kept the Soviet Union in the fight. That isn't hyperbole. Between 1941 and 1945, approximately 19,000 M30 howitzers were built. 19,000! The scale of Soviet industrial production during the war was staggering even to those who study it closely, and the M30 sits at the center of that story. Designed in 1938 by the F.F. Petrov, the M30 was conceived from the start to be buildable. Soviet planners understood that their industrial base, while growing rapidly, needed weapons that could be mass-produced without requiring precision tooling or highly skilled labor for every component. The M30's design made deliberate trade-offs to enable volume manufacturing. In performance terms, it fired a 21.7 kilogram shell to about 11,800 meters. That range figure is where this gun's one genuine limitation shows itself. The M30 also had a remarkably broad shell selection. High explosive, smoke, illumination, armor piercing for emergencies, the gun could do most things adequately. It wasn't the best at any single task, but it was reliable at all of them. What keeps the M30 from ranking higher is that reliable and available in enormous numbers is a different kind of excellence than superior design. It placed its country's survival above its own ambitions. That's not a small thing. Rank 7, Lef 18, Germany. The German army in 1939 prided itself on the quality of its equipment, its training, and the integration of its combat arms. The Lef 18, the Leichte Feldhaubitze 18, was supposed to be the embodiment of that quality, and in many ways it was. The Lef 18 fired a 14.8 kilogram shell to 10,675 meters. The accuracy was excellent. The ammunition was well designed, with a range of fuse options that gave commanders flexibility in the kind of effects they wanted. Airburst for troops in the open, delay for bunkers and field fortifications, point detonating for straightforward high explosive work. German gunnery training was arguably the best in the world for the first half of the war. The crews who operated the Lef 18 were skilled observers of terrain and skilled calculators of fire. A well-handled battery of Lef 18s could shift fires rapidly between targets, walking shells precisely up to a moving front line in ways that required real expertise. So why does it sit here, below the Soviet M30, when Germany's reputation for engineering excellence was so formidable? Weight. The left 18 weighed 1,985 kilograms in action. Its American equivalent, the M101 105mm howitzer, weighed 1,340 kilograms. The British 25-pounder weighed 1,633 kilograms. The German gun was carrying around 600 kilograms more than its closest competitor for roughly equivalent range performance. The Lev 1840 variant tried to address this by mounting the gun on the carriage of the PaK-40 anti-tank gun, saving some weight, but the basic design never fully escaped its fundamental problem. Rank 6. ML-20 152mm howitzer gun, Soviet Union. The ML-20 is where this list takes a significant step upward in lethality. A 152mm shell is not an incremental improvement over a 122mm shell. It is a qualitative change in what artillery can do to a target. The ML-20's projectile weighed 43.5 kilograms at standard charge. When it arrived, it didn't suppress infantry, it removed them. It didn't damage like field fortifications, it destroyed them. And when the Soviets needed a weapon that could engage German heavy tanks at longer ranges than their standard anti-tank guns can manage, the ML-20's direct fire capability made it one of the few options that could reliably penetrate the Tiger and Panther from the front at operational distances. That dual role, heavy howitzer and capable anti-tank gun, is what makes the ML-20 genuinely special. Most artillery designs optimize for one mission profile. The gun that's best at indirect fire from a concealed position is usually not ideal for the direct fire, flat trajectory work of anti-tank combat. The ML-20 managed both. The range figures back this up: 17,265 meters maximum range. That was exceptional for a divisional-level heavy artillery piece. Soviet Corps and Army commanders used concentrations of ML-20s to conduct counter-battery fire against German gun positions before major offensives, systematically hunting and killing German artillery before the tanks and infantry moved. There is one significant downside worth naming honestly. The ML-20 weighed 7,930 kilograms in action. Moving it required substantial towing vehicles, and deployment was significantly more complex than lighter guns. The Soviets managed this through careful planning and the sheer scale of their logistics apparatus by 1943 and 1945, but it was never an easy gun to handle. Rank 5. M114 155mm howitzer, U.S. The United States entered the Second World War with an industrial capacity that its enemies genuinely underestimated. The M114 155mm howitzer is one of the cleaner examples of what American manufacturing philosophy could achieve when it was given time and resources to work. Designed in the late 1930s and entering production in 1942, the M114 was built around the operational requirements of a global power-projecting force across oceans. It had to survive sea transport, function reliably in tropical humidity and desert heat, and European mud. The M114 fired a 43-kilogram shell to a maximum range of 14,600 meters. Muzzle velocity was high enough that the gun could also engage targets in a relatively flat trajectory when needed. Not quite the same anti-tank capability as the ML-20, but not irrelevant either when the target was a lightly armored vehicle. What the M114 offered that many European equivalents did not was reliability in production. American factories built over 6,000 of them during the war. Parts were standardized and interchangeable in ways that field logistics appreciated enormously. The M114 continued serving the United States Army until 1994, 49 years of service. That alone says something about the soundness of its fundamental design. It places fifth rather than higher because it was a specialized heavy howitzer rather than a versatile all-rounder, better than everything below it in sheer hitting power and range, but lacking the elegant flexibility of what's coming. Rank 4. BM-13 Katyusha, Soviet Union. There are guns on this list that win battles. The Katyusha won something harder to measure. It won the psychology of battle. The BM-13 was a multiple rocket launcher mounted on the back of a Studebaker truck. Americans supplied tens of thousands of those trucks to the Soviet Union under Lend-Lease, which is one of the stranger footnotes of the whole war. A single launcher could fire 16 132mm rockets in less than 10 seconds. A battery of 4 launchers delivered 64 rockets into an area target in roughly the same time it took a German soldier to understand what the sound meant. German soldiers called it the Stalin Orgel, Stalin's organ, because the rocket motors produced a distinctive rising shriek as the salvo left the rails. Survivors described it as one of the most psychologically devastating sounds on the Eastern Front. Troops who had endured months of artillery bombardment said Katyusha salvos produced a particular unique form of terror that conventional artillery simply didn't. Now, the accuracy was poor. Be clear-eyed about this. A Katyusha battery firing at a grid reference was saturating an area, not striking a point target. You would not use a Katyusha to hit a command post or neutralize a specific bunker. You would use it to make an entire sector of the front line, infantry positions, uninhabitable for a period of time. The entire system was mounted on a truck. After firing a full salvo, the launch crew could be rolling at road speed within 90 seconds. German counter-battery radar and artillery were designed to locate and engage fixed or slow-moving gun positions. They were not designed for a weapon system that was here, then gone, before the responding shells arrived. It places fourth, above several more conventionally excellent guns, because the Katyusha changed what artillery was. Before it, artillery was about accuracy. After it, artillery could also be about density, saturation, and the deliberate weaponization of fear.
Rank 3, 8.8 centimeter flak 18-36-37, Germany. Ask anyone who studies the Second World War to name the single most feared German weapon. Not a tank, not an aircraft. The answer, almost universally, is the 88. The 8.8 centimeter flak had a history before the war that explains everything about what it became during it. It was designed as an anti-aircraft weapon, hence flak, from Flugzeugabwehrkanone, literally aircraft defense cannon. The physics of shooting down aircraft requires high muzzle velocity, flat trajectory, and extreme accuracy. The 8.8 centimeter flak was not mediocre. Its muzzle velocity of approximately 820 meters per second for anti-tank ammunition meant that a projectile left the barrel and arrived at a 1,000-meter target before the German crew even finished the firing sequence. Time of flight was so short that target movement during flight was almost irrelevant. Against tanks, which move at 30-40 kilometers per hour, a flat trajectory round traveling at 800+ meters per second is functionally a laser beam. At 2,000 meters, the 8.8 centimeter flak could penetrate 120 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor. The front hull armor of a Tiger I, one of the heaviest tanks in the war, was 100 millimeters. That meant the 88 could penetrate a Tiger I, its own nation's signature heavy tank, from the front. The limitation is real. The 88 flak was a large, heavy piece of equipment. Setting it up took time. Moving it was cumbersome. It was an anti-aircraft gun pretending to be a tank destroyer, and it never fully shed those origins.
Rank 2, M101 105mm howitzer, U.S. The M101 is the gun that fed the American war machine. There is a particular kind of excellence that comes from getting everything right in proportion. Not the most powerful, not the longest range, not the most terrifying, but almost every variable, weight, range, shell effectiveness, rate of fire, crew requirements, manufacturing simplicity, maintenance, mobility, optimized simultaneously, with no single factor sacrificed excessively for another. The M101 is that gun. In the Pacific Theater, the M101 proved indispensable in ways that require understanding what fighting in jungle terrain actually meant for artillery. Jungles degraded air support dramatically. It weighed 1,340 kilograms and fired a 14.97 kilogram shell to 11,270 meters. The M101 could be broken down into components and carried through terrain that would have been impassable to heavier guns, sometimes moved by human labor, sometimes by pack animals, sometimes in pieces by small craft along river systems. It arrived where heavier guns could not. The production figures are staggering. Approximately 10,000 M101s were built during the war. Spare parts were available everywhere the American logistical system reached, which was increasingly everywhere. What keeps the M101 from the top is one honest admission. Versatility has different flavors. The M101 was supremely versatile within the artillery mission, but the British gun above it was versatile across roles in a way that redefined what a field gun could be. That's a different kind of excellence. Rank 1, QF 25-pounder, Britain. The Queen of the Battlefield. That's what British artillerymen called it, and if you spend any serious time studying the evidence, the rate of fire, the deployment record, the tactical flexibility, the engineering choices, the longevity of service, you come to understand that the nickname wasn't affection, it was accurate description. The QF 25-pounder was unique among the major artillery designs of the war in being built from the start to function simultaneously as a field gun and a howitzer. This is not a trivial design achievement. Field guns fire at relatively flat trajectories, high muzzle velocity, long range, ideal for direct engagement and counter-battery fire. The firing platform was integral to the design, a circular base plate that allowed 360-degree traverse without repositioning the entire gun. In a fast-moving battle, this meant a 25-pounder battery could engage targets in any direction without the delays that other guns imposed.
A German battery flanked by British forces could be engaged immediately. A Soviet gun in the same position would require relaying the entire piece. The rate of fire was extraordinary. Experienced British crews could sustain 5 rounds per minute for extended periods. In crisis moments, the kind where an infantry position is about to be overrun, where fire needs to arrive now, trained crews hit 8 rounds per minute. The gun weighed 1,633 kilograms, light enough for strategic air transport in emergencies, manageable behind standard artillery tractors across every terrain type the Commonwealth forces encountered. No gun in the Second World War earned the top ranking more completely.
If you liked this video, I'm sure you'll like this one too. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Our channel is small, so we are replying every comment below. Comment any suggestion for future videos. Thanks for watching.